Hello and welcome to the Track Review Comics Reviews on the Iron Cannon podcast and part of the Star Wars Underworld podcast network. I'm Matthew. He's Chris. We got some stuff to talk about. Let's dive right in. Without further ado, we got a news story to chat about.
Woo!
Revelations One Shot 2023.
Uh-huh.
It is coming down the pipe. I'll read the StarWars.com
Sure.
blurb and then I'll throw it to you, Chris. Always in motion is the future, but it's coming into focus. Marvel Star Wars Revelations 2023 number one shot, arriving December 20th, will offer a sneak peek at what lies ahead in the Star Wars comics galaxy. Here is Rob Rice's beautiful cover here.
Oh, yeah.
Similar to last year's one shot of the same name, 2023's edition of Revelations will feature various short tales that set the stage for Marvel Star Wars line in the coming year. The creator lineup, here we go, includes Mark Guggenheim, Charles Soule, Greg Pak, Mark Bernardin, Alyssa Wong, Ethan Sachs, and Kevin Scott, with Salvador Larroca, Will Sliney, America Cresta, Ibrahim Robertson, and more handling art duties. Chris, you have lots to say about this one. Go for it. What do you think of this news, this review, or this release?
Yeah, Matthew, this is a nice little surprise here during the week. I wasn't really expecting this. I thought Revelations number one for 2022 would be the first and last time we would see something like that. I did enjoy the previous one because it gave us a look. And funny enough, like we're going to talk about it, Revelations number one, 2022 actually ended up in this week's comics, believe it or not. So it's like, oh, we're coming full circle on last year's Revelations. So we know how far flung out that this stuff goes. And you can see how far out these creators know the stories they're going to tell like a year in advance and all, right? So this is interesting. Just looking at the cover, these are characters we expect to delve into. Now, we got the whole slate of authors and creators. Now, Mark Bernardin, I'm looking at this right now. That's a creator that we haven't ever had in Star Wars, to my knowledge. So, I mean, we have a couple wild cards in here. Like, of course, you would expect Leia, you would expect Vader, you'd expect Jabba, Luke, Lando. Now, looking at the right side, the guy in the blue, you might have seen some fanfare recently. Very, very excited about that. So I'm
familiar from. I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So I'm like, oh, that's the thing that immediately made me very, very curious. Are we going to get a story about Thrawn's exile story where he goes into the other galaxy? Because that could be very interesting. I don't know if Filoni will really want anybody to tell that story quite yet, because they seem they're very secretive when it comes to Mandalorian stuff in that storyline. But there's a lot of other room. Maybe we're getting another adaptation. Maybe we'll get the Ascendancy adaptation or the other novels that they never adapted. There's a lot of Thrawn stories told that could be, the hype for this character is going to be at an all-time high right now. So I would imagine they're going to capitalize on him. It makes sense. Very curious about that for sure. Mace Windu, that's interesting because he does not fall into the usual mainline series of comics. So I like the idea that we had a Mace Windu comic. Didn't really enjoy it that much. I forget what the heck the title was called.
Mace Windu, Jedi of the Republic.
Jedi of the Republic. I
thought that you're incorrect in your opinion of that. Sorry, go
ahead. Yeah. So it's interesting. We are getting a prequel kind of push at this point because in April of next year we're getting was the Living Force by John Jackson Miller.
That awesome novel.
So I mean, I guess they're going to be making another strong prequel push. The character on the bottom is the wild card as well because we don't know who that is. A cloaked figure. Comics that we've been seeing a lot of cloaked figures recently through the Crimson Reign trilogy. There's those cloaked figures, and we find out that it's Leia and it's Luke after Return of the Jedi. So the comics have a nice foundation of teasing characters for a long time. And Lando, I guess that could be Lando from original trilogy era. I'm still really shocked to see Luke with the yellow lightsaber. I thought for sure by now we would be getting the green saber at this point. Your good old buddy Keith Trennis up there. We didn't get High Republic in Revelations number one because Revelations number one was very much focused on the current timeline that we're focusing on in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. So it's nice to see that Revelations is kind of a catch-all for all eras of Star Wars. This time around, we're going to be in the middle. We're going to be in the thick of phase. Well, not in the thick of. We're going to kind of be just starting out phase 3 when this comes out. So. We know that she becomes a master. If you look at the Tales of Light and Life, which is out now,
Mhm.
Her short story has her already established as the master. Maybe we'll get some of that story in this. Not really sure, but I can guarantee you that Ethan Sachs will probably be writing about Jabba the Hutt. And it's interesting that he's in the middle. Like he is the um the biggest character of all these facades or whatever here. So I'm like, okay, like
Mhm.
there's still story to tell for Jabba. There's not much story to tell. Obviously, we know his fate after during Return of the Jedi. So it's like giving his one last shot here of fame before we kind of look at other eras of Star Wars storytelling. So very curious to how this all factors in. This is a nice way to kind of appease our appetite. I would say that like most of the stuff they teased in Revelations with the framing of the Eye of Webbish Bog was the one that was like telling Vader, "Oh, this could happen, but it also might not happen." I'm pretty sure like
Mhm.
everything happened that they tease at this point.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you kind of saved the best for last year. That character at the top there, Keeve Trennis. Anytime Keeve comes up, I'm like, what's happening? What's she doing? What's going on? Because I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep repeating this, especially for people who haven't seen this year podcast or the Iron Cannon podcast. She's going to be one of the most important characters in all of Star Wars. I'm kind of exaggerating slightly exaggerating. She is the sign that the Jedi Order is in its decline. She is the sign because when she leaves, when a master leaves the order, that's a big deal. It's a huge deal. They create a bust of them in this room below us. So really excited to see her get more story. I'm always happy to see her get more story. What is it? Because so here's the thing that my mind is going to. You mentioned how it shows up, how last year's shows up in the comics today or from yesterday. And those were all interconnected last year with Ajax Sigma and how everything, even in Mark Guggenheim's Han Solo book, that helped tie in what was happening with that. Okay, now we know it's the return of Ajax Sigma, and is Keeve's story somehow connected to everyone else's? I don't know. It doesn't have to be, but we know. I mean, we know Kevin Scott's writing that story, and yeah, to see her get in the spotlight, get in front of people's faces, people who may not be into High Republic as much, to see her, yeah, just be present there. It's exciting because, yeah, as you said, she's a very young master, probably the youngest masters in history of the Order. Then, and to have that influence, wield that influence at that age, to see just it getting kicked off. I guess we'll already have seen a bit of her story already, but uh yeah, I mean, last year's Revelations was really rich and introspective and did a wonderful job of setting up and teasing what was to come and giving us enough meat on the bone to then you know but to then for everything going forward, but also didn't give us too much and didn't give away too much. And also from Vader's point of view and from the Eye of Webich Bog, which we did see last week. Vader went to the eye last week, and so there's some more connection synergy there. Yeah, that blue guy, I mean, he's in the Grand Admiral's uniform there, so depends on when this is. That could be, I mean, from Vader's perspective, that could be kind of saying, "Hey, remember that time you and Thrawn, or Anakin and Thrawn,
Oh
found
yeah.
that Cortosis factory,
Oh
or
yeah.
whatever, Um, you remember that time? I mean, I keep on. For me, that's the problem with this is a bit of a tangent. Not the problem. The thing about alliances is for me the most interesting parts were the Anakin bit. But yeah, I mean, to when you and Thrawn went back to the Cartosis thing and discovered what Skywalkers were about, or I don't know if that was the previous book, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, I'll be curious. I mean, yeah, it's what is the framing device there? What does Mace Windu again, if these are connected? So uh really excited revelation
Yeah.
that they brought out. And yeah, hopefully they keep doing these going forward,
Yeah. I
especially because of the way they tie things all together. If you have any more thoughts on this.
Yeah, I like this because sometimes when you're in the thick of with the comics,
Mhm.
it's you're kind of like, all right, what's the end game here? What are we building to? it's just the nature of the beast when it comes to the comics is they are very incremental storytelling.
Yeah.
Like it's like every month you're getting a little bit of a piece, a little bit of a piece.
Mhm.
And then you look back and you're like, oh yeah, now we've covered a long ground. But in the moment, you're just like, all right, like the story might not go as far as you want it sometimes. So that's why I like how Revelations really gives you a large look at like
Mhm.
a year down the line. Be like, this is what we are building towards. This is like the marquee moments, like,
Yep.
for like this is like the Star Wars Celebration opening ceremonies for the comic books,
Yeah.
essentially,
Good way of
because it's
putting it.
like, all right, this is the end game for Star Wars
Mhm.
mainline. This is the end game for Bounty Hunters. This is the main game for all these things. We're building up to it. We're gonna give you a taste. We're gonna give you a tease,
Yeah.
but we're not going to tell you how we get there. So that's the really fun
Mhm.
part because you could be like, "Ooh, how are the storylines going to change to get to this point?" So it
Mhm.
gives you something to chew on.
That point about celebration, it makes me wonder if they're like you messaged me, is there's gonna be something more about this at New York Comic Con? Why did they release it now and not at New York Comic, or unveil it now at New York, not at New York Comic Con? Yeah, maybe there'll be more. We'll see. Um,
Mhm.
on that note, again, just a reminder: the tractor beam will be assembled at New York Comic Con
Yep.
in 3 weeks. 3 weeks from now.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, 3 weeks from now we'll
coming
be
up.
there
Coming
hanging
up.
out.
Yeah, I got into all the panels I wanted, and then
Same.
also the David Tennant panel.
Yep.
You got- anyway, I'm just not a big Doctor Who guy. What can you say? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, what they're able to talk about on the screen side, but yeah, the paper side. I'll be talking about that over on the Iron Cannon podcast as well. So keep it locked. Let's move right along to Bounty Hunters. I'll keep that off. Bounty Hunters number 38. The actual reviews here, written by Ethan Sachs, art by Davide Tinto, colors by Arif Prianto, cover as you saw there by Marco Cicchetto and Masio Meniz. Grievous attacks the Dark Droids,
hmm
tie-in Zuckuss 4LOM, and their fellow bounty hunters face a deadly droid ambush. Valence's life hangs in the balance. What role has General Grievous played? The chaos roiling the galaxy. This again, you got Django 1 week, 1 month, Grievous
Yep.
another month. I mean, this is again. I'm not wearing my prequels T-shirt, but I don't need to anymore. It's just it's there. Everyone's showing how pivotal the events of
Yep.
the Clone Wars are. I mean, there's the streaming service show that's showing how pivotal the events of the Clone Wars are. To see, I mean, the one thing character that really stands out for me is Clegson, actually, and just
Yeah.
the reveal that this character, this droid who is awaiting the return of Ajax Sigma on Clegson's moon. We'll get to that in a bit. He's basically puppeteering the puppet master, and this organic puppet master, and how uh you know when he summons General Grievous, try and ally this church of the droids or whatever, the second revelation that Ajax calls it later, but on this planet, to ally them with the separatists, and that ends up going great for him, until I guess the separatists fall, and Grievous isn't able to return and finish the conversation. But it turns out Clixon is in the ascendancy again, and is calling the shots on his moon, Clixon's moon. Um, yeah, a few kind of surprising, shocking moments. When Valance, uh, we think he's back. We think he's the sign of what Cligson's aspirations to ascend to his true form. It seems that he wants to become a droid, as if that's the ideal form for all life, apparently. And maybe it's an intriguing idea. It's a concerning idea. It's an intriguing idea. And then Kel, Kel's partner, I forget her name, it comes in, has uh
Wait,
Violet's love's
Tonga?
fate. Sorry, good.
Tonga?
No, the Tonga is Lasha's partner. Tonga's the leader of the group.
Wait, Kel has a partner?
Yeah, or someone who had a crush on Cal, who's part of the crew. Anyway, that moment where Violet just blasts her face off, and like, okay, it's very clearly, it's a brutal, gruesome moment, but
Oh
it
my
was really
god.
well done, really well paced by both Sax and Tinto. Did a great job of leading us to that moment. Sorry, it was a great sign that Violet's gone. Maybe where's his brain at? Where's his mind at? And then really, really fascinating conversation between Tonga and Kel about how Tonga kind of abandoned her crew before, how she couldn't save all of her loved ones, and this is why she's kind of this one last gasp at being able to save someone she cares about at all. So she's going through all these extremes. Really, yeah, really great character moments in this, while also definitely tying everything into Dark Droids really well, really, really nicely. I mean, not so much about the Spark Eternal and the Scourge, and that's fine. It's tying
Yeah.
into everything with Ajax and his group, and how what role has General Grievous played in he's a droid, he's a cyborg too. He definitely has the uh the prejudices of an organic who believes droids are disposable. And again, to see that, I mean, that's kind of one of the themes of the Clone Wars is the Separatists throw all these droids at these clones, and their cannon fodder and their lightsaber fodder. And what happens then when you have a group of again, we're going to go into this in the D Squad, the B story in D Squad, but what happens if you have droids who actually believe in their own dignity
Yeah,
and their
really.
own
Uh-huh.
sentience, their own reason for existing, their own birth,
Yeah.
and how they're even better, more capable soldiers, but also able to build a society. And Grievous isn't able to handle that. So lots packed into this issue, and really good companions to D Squad. What do you think of this? Also, if you want to talk about the reading order, because that's getting confusing. I actually ended up reading D Squad before I read Bounty Hunters. But yeah, first of all, go whichever order you want to talk about. Go ahead. Like in
Yeah,
terms of either
we'll
Bounty
talk
Hunters or the
about
reading order generally.
the elephant in the room, which is the whole reading order. So
Yeah,
if you'll notice Exhibit A here, you got the reading order.
yeah,
Now, according to issue number 1 of D Squad, it says you're supposed to read, D Squad first.
yeah.
And then you open up Bounty Hunters. And then you have Darth Vader. It's like the whole reading order is kind of off. And then like the week before, it was telling you to read D Squad before Bounty Hunters. So, I
Which
mean,
I think made more
luckily,
sense, frankly. But anyway,
there's no, you don't have to read these in an order per
mhm,
se. There's not like a character showing up that was supposed to be somewhere else before, at least. But I just find that interesting. It's like,
mhm.
okay, well, what order do you actually read these in?
I
But
mean,
anyway,
their plans can change, their ideas
yeah,
can change. But I mean, the order I accidentally read it in, it worked well. But anyway,
yeah,
what do you think of Bounty Hunters 38 as a book?
yeah. As a book, it's good. Um, it's dawning on me like a lot of the characters are doing nothing, which is kind of bothering me. Like Dirge, like you bring in this character Dirge, who's like one of the most respected,
Hmm.
cool bounty hunters from Legends, and the guy gets like one line of a book, and he doesn't really do anything.
Hmm.
So I'm just kind of like perplexed of like you could have thrown any other really cool bounty hunter in there, but why'd you throw Dirge in there, Ethan? I'm waiting to see
Yeah.
Dirge really get his comeuppance, and he has been doing stuff really cool in the previous arcs. I
Hmm.
will say that, like he's had really awesome moments, but the last couple issues, it seems like all right, that these guys are tied to their fate. They're organics. They can't even do anything because these droids won't let them like wander
Right.
anywhere, and that's part of the conflict. Is they're sitting around twiddling their thumbs, and Tonga's saying, oh, I got to get this. We got to go find Valance. Something's happening. What's happening? What's happening? And then you have, meanwhile, you didn't mention them at all, but 4LOM and Zuckuss. That's
Yeah.
our Dark Droids tie in there with the Scourge. They're
True.
weaponless. They're fighting off these guys. And I just love the relationship between these characters. I think Bounty Hunters has done such a wonderful job to give these background 2 second and you miss it characters in Empire Strikes
Hmm.
Back such great personalities where they both are like symbiotic relationship, like they both are a package deal. They both know each other's quirks, weaknesses, strengths, and you even get a bit of reflection between the both of these characters in this very issue with Zuckuss literally sacrificing
Mhm.
himself for his friend, and then 4LM being a literal droid, not understanding the concept of emotion and saying basically, okay, I understand, but I cannot feel, basically gets jettisoned off in space. We know he's eventually going to end up in D Squad, and that's where the reading order came in, because I was like, ooh,
Right.
I know, Zuckus or 4LM is going to be in this. I don't want to read the wrong one first, whatever.
But it doesn't even show up
Then
yet.
he
So
doesn't show up yet, so it doesn't matter. That's why it doesn't matter.
yeah.
But yeah, we're getting real critical, nitpicky there. But
Yeah. Fair enough.
yeah, I mean, Ethan Sachs, man, he doesn't pull any punches,
Mhm.
because the beginning of the issue, it's like Valance has lost his memory, and then he's gone now at this point. I mean, blowing the
Yeah.
head off of this character, Katak, this changeling. Oh my gosh, like that
Yeah.
was brutal. Just this somebody's face getting disintegrated right there on a full page spread. Like both beautiful, but also just completely over the top and crazy. But it
Mhm.
just shows you, like, he is literally Terminator. I know people like saying out on Twitter, why the hell is Star Wars copying off of Terminator? But apparently, Balance was created before Terminator,
True.
technically. So
True.
Terminator's copying off of Star Wars. But
Yeah.
yeah, we get to see, in all intents and purposes, this is the Terminator in Star Wars at this point. He's got no emotion, no
Mhm.
mind. He killed his lover that's imitating her, at least.
Oh,
So it's like, okay.
right.
And then the Grievous stuff. I absolutely love how they are tapping into the prequels,
Mhm.
giving a little bit more story to these characters that, are really legendary characters. But, between Django and Grievous, we haven't gotten a lot more with Grievous than Django, obviously. But yeah, it was neat seeing how great that Ethan Sachs was writing. I put this out on Twitter. I replied to one of Ethan's things. I said I was reading the speech bubbles in Grievous's voice. Like
Yeah.
I was literally doing that in my car as I picked these up.
Yeah.
Just like this works perfectly. The language,
Mhm.
the personality, the vocals, it just worked great. And it just shows you that, Grievous, he's always that guy that's gonna weigh his plus and minuses. And if it's not in his favor, he's going to turn tail and run away like a coward.
Mhm.
And he
Yeah.
does this in this issue, but it shows you. I think that one of the reasons why they did this is they shows you how strong these droids of the what is it called, the second revelation or something like that.
Yeah, that's what Ajax has laid
Yeah,
out.
Ajax's people, like, they are pious, religious kind of droids, but they are also extremely adept at combat, and there's so many of them that they are overwhelming. So that just gives you a peek at
Mhm.
how cool these guys are going to be facing the Scourge, hopefully in
Mhm.
the next issue of Dark Droids #3. So yeah, I very much
Yeah.
enjoyed this one.
Yeah, it definitely kind of a Teutonic Knights Templar
Yep.
kind of vibe to them for droids, which is amazing. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with Pilot. Is he gone? Is no one ever really gone? I don't know. I mean, he's been such a character that's been such build up. Let me try that again. He's being a character that's been built up so much throughout this whole run, throughout these 38 issues of about stretching back to 2020. That in what if there's still something of him in there? There's still good in him, and because Clixon, he wants to ascend to droid form. He also he's got to be jealous. He's got to have this vendetta against probably against Ajax, even though he's never necessarily met Ajax. Um, Clearly being more hospitable to organics. Yeah, I mean, to see, I'll be curious to see where his own sort of revenge fantasy plays into this war between the Scourge and the Second Revelation. Maybe he allies with the Scourge and then can get succumb by it. Who knows? But yeah, the definitely again the character moments, especially with Zuckus 4LOM, my sentimental friend, and how 4LOM is still able to show some sentimentality, even though he doesn't actually understand the word. I really appreciated that line. Again, I called this issue D squads and B squads. The character beats that moment with Tonga and Kel. You know, it could be, this could be a truly great uh, crew under the right leadership. And the implication there, I figured, was for Tonga to really step up and take charge. And you mentioned how Scourge and not Zuckus and the Trandoshan guy, who we all know and love. Why am I blanking on his name? That's weird. He's feel free to jump in with the name. I forget what his name is, Bosk. Bosk, that guy.
Yep, and
Scourge
don't
and
forget
Bosk.
that's oh sorry, I was muted.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
That's six. That's six. Don't forget that. That's,
Yeah,
that's
that yeah, that so all those guys.
gotta
Yeah,
give
they're
Star
sitting
Wars
around doing
Uprising its
nothing.
due. Come on.
Yeah. They're sitting around doing nothing, and yeah, I mean it's funny. They're getting, you're getting frustrated. They're getting frustrated. like Zekis or Bosk is all. I'm beginning to test my patience now, which is surprising because his patience is usually pretty short, pretty thin. Um, yeah, leaving room for Tonga to really take charge and see what's happening with Clicks and uh Clicks and Byler, and how if Byler's gone, is that going to be the thing that motivates her to go forward and to actually lead this crew to bring Byler back. And remember this, this is a contained story within Bounty Hunters, right? It's its own run, its own line. It's done a really great job then of connecting to the wider story, which we
Oh
didn't
yeah.
necessarily think Bounty Hunters would. This is definitely, this whole event, this is a true crossover, and I keep saying this.
Yep.
I'm gonna keep saying this week after week. It's earned its time. It's earned its
Hmm.
place as something. I mean, even if it doesn't necessarily directly tie into Return of the Jedi, at least it's interesting and entertaining
Yeah.
and gives us things to think about and talk about.
Yeah.
So worth it. All that. Do you have
Mhm.
any last thoughts on Bounty Hunters number 38?
No, you read my mind there, Matthew, because I did want to mention how
Mm,
good. Now we're pretty well into this crossover, right? We've had
yeah.
multiple issues of the main line of the. We'll talk about the first issue of the miniseries, so we are well into this, and I would say
Mhm.
right now I'm cementing it as probably the best Star Wars crossover yet.
Yeah.
Comparing it even
Okay.
to Vader Down, which was a lot more, it was only a couple issues, so it wasn't
Mhm.
really much to speak about the breadth and width of
Yeah.
what's going on here with
Mhm.
all the separate stories. But I think it's great that they're able to have Scourge as a backstory in each one of these specific mainline series that is also harkening back to that and making things more interesting. And overall, it's a cool story, like you said, right?
Mhm.
It's just what happens when the droids rebel, what happens when there's sentience, what happens when there's a virus. Like these are interesting things that I think will add
Yeah.
depth to Star Wars. I could see down the line, right? 5, 6 years from now, you might be reading a Star Wars novel or
Mhm.
another comic book series, and they're going to reference this stuff. They're going to
Yeah.
be like, "Oh yeah, remember that time when the Scourge like just basically decimated like half the galaxy?" It might even be mentioned in a show for all we know, right? Like
You never know.
this is enough of a footprint now.
Yeah.
I feel like that it's gonna have to be mentioned sooner or later in some other form of
Mhm.
media.
That's how it works, right? Especially going from a comic to a novel, right? The paper canon synergy there. Yeah, if it's compelling, good enough story, why not bring it forward, bring it through. Similar, kind of a similar note to Keeve's story, so interesting. Why not tie her into whatever's happening with this Revelations one shot? Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it'll be hard to. I'll hold off on evaluating, um, you know, that and Hidden Empire. Is definitely more up my alley in the types of
Uh,
ideas it's dealing with, and the designs, and droids using the Force basically, and tapping what that means for them to tap into the Force. So very definitely, it has it's a good candidate for being the best crossover. I
yeah.
mean, not counting High Republic, because High Republic is
Oh
on
yeah,
its
yeah.
own. But yeah, as in a comic book event, Marvel style comic book event, yeah, it's definitely on its way up. Speaking of it, speaking of droids who know what they're doing, D Squad number one from the Clone Wars, written by Mark Guggenheim. Return of the Droids. This is an A story, a two-part story here. Return of the Droids, written by with art by Salva Espin and colors by Israel Silva. The Book of Ajax, art by Guggenheim's longtime collaborator David Messina
Yep.
and Brian Valenza, colors by Brian Valenza, and the cover by Aaron Kuber and Frank Martin. The unsung heroes of the Clone Wars return. A terrible scourge is corrupting the galaxy's droids. And to fight this menace, R2D2 has to assemble a team of droid heroes, the D Squad, filled with guest stars from across the galaxy, including the special appearance and showdown by Chopper from Star Wars Rebels and another show. Plus, the Book of Ajax provides the missing pieces linking Revelations, Dark Droids, and Han Solo and Chewbacca. Read to see how it's all connected.
Yeah.
Lots going on in this issue.
Hmm.
What do you think? What's your takeaways here from D Squad number 1?
Yeah, my takeaways from D Squad number one is it was a callback to another comic written by the same guy. Mark Guggenheim loves writing characters that don't actually speak basics, such as Chewbacca, Wookiees, and R2D2. Because like the first several pages are just a lot of beeps and boops because we're seeing R2 getting jettisoned into space. I like how this is a straight up tie-in, right? If you didn't read Dark Droids number 2, they might be a little lost. Why is R2 just floating in space, right?
Like
So we
the
get that
one moment right
connectivity,
after, yeah, that
the
was great.
connectivity right after he gets jettisoned by C-3PO. And we're just seeing him pull out every one of his gadgets that is like destroyed. So he eventually uses smoke to like push him. And then it's a nice droid journey, I will say. It's like you run into Whack, then you run into Chopper, then you run into like one of the pilot Rex droids you see on Star Tours. Then you run into 000, and it's just a nice love letter to the droids of Star Wars. I will say that, whether they speak basic, whether they are homicidal, whether they are just in the wrong place at the wrong time and don't really want to be bothered by anything, you get to see the different personality, the different quirks of the droids, and you get to see R2 again as the hero of his own story. So I enjoyed it.
If you like Chopper live action, see him get into a shouting match with her too on the moon of Yago of all places. Like, come on. Yeah, it was pretty fun. Again, like I think I mentioned with the Kenobi comic, like the self-editing in the self photography in in silent comics, or in this case droid beep comics. It's always a little difficult, a little tough. It's easier when they're speaking English or basic, whatever. Yeah, but Mark, Salva Espin did a great job just pacing us through and carrying us through that line. Yeah, the just not too sure. Yeah, what else to add there? Definitely, yeah, loved how it brought up and brought us through all these different characters that we know and love, and reassembling the D Squad. Not quite exactly. I mean, I'm guessing Niebuhr Gascon isn't going to show up, or someone like him isn't going to show up, but you never know. It's also because it's interesting. It's not just Clone Wars. So yes, it is the Clone Wars D Squad, just like you had Grievous from the Clone Wars. You have the D Squad from the Clone Wars, but it's also all these other droids we picked up along the way, like Chopper, like 000. And so yeah, I mean, of course, and R2's just been in everything. So we don't think of him as specifically Clone Wars, but I mean, Wack would, because that's his main connection. Although Wack is part of the Rebel Alliance now, which is also neat to see. He's was taking critical hygienic sheets to home one. I'm not sure what that means, but that, and then yeah, Book of Ajax, like you mentioned, bringing in everything from from Revelations, and even the blurb mentioned Revelations, and Han Solo and Chewbacca. Yeah, just going into more about Ajax's own philosophy. How, I mean, I love that when we realizing they're already free. They're already free to go and build the society that they want, and they don't have to necessarily take up arms. They try, um, but they don't have to try and fight. A great, really fascinating moment. I want to see more Ajax and Luke talking. Me and talking. I love talking, and just intelligent creatures, characters sharing ideas. I want to see what R2 think, or not what R2. Well, yeah, what R2, sure, but what Luke thinks of everything going on with Ajax, and how and we'll get some of that, I think, in Charles Soule's ongoing comic, hopefully. Um, what his involvement might be. I mean, that's the question. I mean, that's a question a lot of Star Wars comics generally have, is what are the characters that we know and love have to do, and what they think about this new situation that they're confronted with. And that's another thing really going for this whole Dark Droids tie-in. It's a really new thing in Star Wars that can explore these deeper topics. And Mark Guggenheim does such a great job, also, like Ethan Sachs did, also connecting, like you said, the first second after a Charles Soule comic and a character that we've encountered in a Charles Soule comic. Mark Guggenheim is stepping up as another one of the greats in in Star Wars comics. Again, he had the hard job of giving us this Han and Chewie book that we were all, what's this about? Why do we have this? How is this connected? And I think if we go back and read it, like, okay, yeah, it's a little prequel to how Ajax comes about, and just how this book especially adds depth to that. That we see, okay, on Kligson's moon, he gets hacked to pieces, probably by Loading Greatstorm or whoever, right? Of all characters. Because he led this droid revolt that the Jedi have to put down. And that's another interesting thing. The Jedi are the ones who have to sorry, set aside, like take up arms against this new unusual thing that they see as a threat. And it's a problem for the Jedi. But also Ajax, talking about how rage and violence and fear leading to darkness, leading to the dark side. And so his willingness to lay that down and say, no, we're gonna try and build this peaceable droid society on this planet called the Second Revelation. I don't know, yeah, if that is necessarily Kligson's boon as well. I don't think so. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, it definitely. I mean, I'm guessing this.
Nope, that's
might
Mechas 3.
Oh, it's a different planet. Oh, yeah, Mechas 3. That's right. Yeah, it's a different planet. Yeah, Kligson's moon is where he has to come back, and this fascinating messianic redemption story or messianic return story. It has to come back to the planet where he was destroyed. But yeah, then he goes and creates this new society on the Second Revelation, called Revelations. Haha, get it? Yeah, I mean, I gather we won't get any more of this book of Ajax, but maybe we will. I mean, that was a nice surprise. I hadn't read this blurb. I don't read the blurbs yet. I want to go in as spoiler free. It's a nice surprise that we're getting this kind of missing link now, and I'm glad we didn't get it before. I think we would have been kind of confused and lost if we got it after, because again, it brings up these new ideas and new aspect of the storyline, and a looming conflict with this other droid that was awaiting his return. I forget his name, and
Taramak or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, that's from Bounty. I'm looking at Bounty Hunters right now, but there's Simon.
Yeah, maybe Simon. Yeah, the one that says, okay,
the asp droid.
Yeah, or the one that says you have to stay here.
Yeah,
don't get into trouble.
Oh wait, no, that's the other droid. There's so many droids.
The one who confronts Ajax,
the square head.
We got to go fight.
And, that's Simon.
Yeah, and says no, and Ajax, we don't have to fight.
It is so interesting. It is so interesting because you have these droids having this really in-depth conversation about like free will.
It's debate,
and just like it's a complete like paradigm shift of like droids can think like humans or like sentient life. Like, what the hell is going on here? This is frightening. Like, what is happening? But I had to pop open Bounty Hunters as we're talking because I'm not sure if you're aware, but Bounty Hunters is taking place aboard the Haven, which is in orbit above Kligson's moon.
Yeah.
So
no, I knew that was also the place was connected. Yeah.
So my question to you, and this is I didn't ask this to you yet, but
sure.
What exactly was he going back to Kligson's moon for? Because it mentions he has to go back there for something. Those people end up getting frightened that he's there. He has to defend himself. In doing so, he kills those people inadvertently.
Right.
And then Luke confronts him. But we never really figure out what he does, because when he goes there, he looks a certain way. And when he comes back, he gets like a whole new head, like this, like more like holy kind of clothes and stuff. So like, do you know what he was going for there? Like,
good question.
I don't know.
I hadn't thought too much about it. I know. I think with the new appearance, I think he's actually kind of robing for like an audience to his court or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But also, yeah, I mean, what's he going back for? Because he could just be enacting the kind of the messianic hope of the group.
Okay.
Or not. I mean, he could actually have something practical that he needs to go get and go retrieve. We don't know. It could be something similar almost to the Spark Eternal, in that there's got to be something new and different about this droid, about these droids that are able to have that kind of intellectual, spiritual depth.
Yeah.
And maybe that is something on this planet. Who knows, a way to spread their gospel in a way, just
Yeah.
not maybe not in a similar way, kind of the way the Scourge is spreading its gospel of violence and takeover.
Yeah. I found that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I found that was interesting. I found that was interesting that we have these droids just, and I'm losing my damn train of thought as I speak here. I'm just the thought is going out of my brain.
I mean, these droids have this conversation.
Yeah, the droids were having a conversation. I mentioned that, but the whole idea. Oh yeah, the whole idea of, you look at Revelations number 1 again, going back to this, and as we're talking about Revelations number 2, and we have Ajax looking like an absolute villain. Remember, we were thinking like, oh man, like this is the new villain of Star Wars.
Right.
And Luke is fighting him. It's like, oh my gosh, this guy is a bad guy. Look at this guy. He's like Ultron in Star Wars or whatever.
Yeah.
And now we're getting the same scene, but from his perspective, and he's just misunderstood.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't want to be fighting Luke. He didn't want to fight those people, but the people started attacking him out of nowhere. He's defending himself and really kind of killed them by accident or whatever. So and once that happens, he's like, I'm throwing down my arms. I'm gonna just focus on being like at peace and just getting more of a community about the free people, and we're not militarizing ourselves or anything like that. We're just out here on our own doing. So I thought that was interesting. It's like you have this one perspective of him being an evil droid, and his own perspective of, I'm just trying to make my way in the galaxy kind of thing.
Yeah. First of all, you said it's freeing people. Droids are people in this case. Yeah. Well, he also recognizes he was tempted by the dark side, by darkness, and so it says he could have become a villain in this, and he said, "No, I turned away from that," and is trying to prevent Simon from becoming a villain, and has this sense of good and evil and a moral weight to him. What this makes me think of, oddly enough, is it's setting up. Maybe setting up, who knows, setting up Return of the Jedi. So 3PO in the sequel era, in the Resistance, he's the chief of security. He's the top spy. And to be the top spy, that isn't just some factual technical job. You actually have to have instinct and intuition, and to be able to read people and read the waves of political unrest and development. And I'm wondering if there's something that kind of lingers with 3PO in that's coming up. That his encounters, yes, he's been taken over by the Scourge at this point we're at, but if there's something, I mean, he always had the capacity to learn and grow, and maybe that's part of what. I mean, that maybe just is it right there with Ajax. He's looking for droids with the capacity to learn and grow. What if there's this something? I mean, would it be kind of disappointing if there's a bit of a MacGuffin? Just going back to your question about what he's looking for, but it kind of ties into him having this moral sense. Where does that come from? And is it simply programming? I mean, this is kind of the Asimov-like question, right? Is it simply programming, or is there something else about him? We're saying him. I mean, and most of the way, it's funny, saying him, right? In Star Wars, especially, we've always personified droids. We've given them genders. We've given them, they're full-fledged characters. Even since 1977, we see R2 and 3PO out in the desert. They're the first characters we see. And there's the first sense of humor we see, the whole big glob of grease. You go your own way, R2. Yeah. It's seeing this within the story itself in this meta way. And it really, again, bringing up all these amazing ideas, amazing thoughts, and to see, I mean, I really love seeing Ajax Sigma and his story. We are kind of running short on time. Do you have any last thoughts on D Squad number 1?
No, I look forward to the next ones. I'm very curious to see how the other droid characters, IG-88, Furl, the other droid characters factor in the whole thing, and how they cooperate. That'll be interesting even more.
And what they're actually what their goal is. We knew what their goal is with the Clone Wars, is to do intel for the Republic. What are they up to now? Who are they working for? What's the plan? Are they with Ajax, or are they on their own, or with the Rebellion because it's R2? But then 000 is there, and 000, he's a
Yeah.
villain. Full
Yep.
stop. For LOM, he's not a villain in this, but he's part of the Underworld. So then Chopper's Chopper. So we'll see. On that note, this has been the Tractor Beam Comics Review on the Iron Cannon Podcast, Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. Chris, where can they find you on the internet?
Yep, you can find me on Twitter, Star Raptor, as it's spelled here on the channel. And you can also look at the YouTube channel that I have, youtube.com/Star Raptor. We talk about the latest in Star Wars. I always do my little 5-minute, 10-minute breakdowns of the comics we are talking about today. A little bit earlier, the upload goes live. So you can always watch
the link
those
for that
first.
is in the comments down below, by the way.
Sure, you can always watch those first, those videos, and come join us live for lunch and have some comic talk. But yeah, I also put up a video about some cool Star Wars miniatures that are coming down the line from Atomic Mass Games. So I have a little rundown of everything for those fun little things that I play on the side of just chatting Star Wars and whatnot. But yeah, youtube.com/Star Raptor is where you'll find me.
Yeah, and again, check out the recap of these books in the description below. Keep me from buying that Lego Venator.
Oh yeah,
Prevent me from that. That's going to be 1,000 Canadian dollars.
Oh my gosh,
yeah, about that. Probably more like 800, 900. Yeah, because it's exchange rate. It's terrible. You can follow me on Instagram and Threads at MNEUG1138, Twitter at NEUG485. It's Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. Underworld Discord. I'm in there. Chris, you're in there a little bit. I believe the link is in the description below. If not, please DM us at or DM me at any of those addresses, preferably the Ion Cannon Pod ones. And check us out. I won't be on the main show Monday night, but Joel will still be up and running, talking about that blue guy, talking about this blue guy here.
Cool.
A little more, because we're always going to talk about him on the Ion Cannon Pod podcast Monday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Got a great guest lined up for that. Until then, let's take it easy and happy reading.